Welcome to this Forge College Explainer. We're diving into the Advanced Security Patterns and Best Practices module, which sits right inside our Security Patterns and Smart Contracts track, all part of the massive Smart Contract Security course. Now, in our last lesson, we did a deep dive into the circuit breaker pattern. Today, we're taking that foundation and bridging it over to a really crucial and honestly kind of fun defensive strategy, rate limiting. To make this all crystal clear, we've sketched everything out like classic minimalist patent paper diagrams. So picture crisp orange and dark green ink on beige paper. And let's get into it. Here's our blueprint for today. We'll cover the emergency stop problem, token versus leaky buckets, per account versus global limits, actually building the rate limiter, teaming up with breakers, and finally, a recap and next steps.
Part 1, the emergency stop problem.
All right, let's address the elephant in the room right off the bat. If we already built a super robust circuit breaker into our smart contract, why on earth do we even need rate limiting? It's a completely fair question. Think of circuit breakers like your factory's massive red emergency stop button. They are absolutely essential for preventing total catastrophes. But honestly, they're a terrible, blunt instrument for managing everyday heavy traffic. You wouldn't shut down the entire factory and send all the workers home just because one single conveyor belt is moving a little too fast, right? Instead, think of rate limiting as the incredibly smooth operating bouncer at the door of your super exclusive Web3 club. This bouncer is a measured throttle. They keep the flow of traffic totally manageable. They let the VIPs stroll right in, they tell the rowdy crowd to maybe go take a walk around the block, and they manage the floor so well that you rarely, if ever, actually have to smash that emergency stop button and ruin everyone's night. So the breaker is your blunt stop, and the rate limit is your measured throttle. Moving to section 2, token versus leaky buckets. There's a pretty stark contrast between our two classic bucket algorithms here. On one side, we have the token bucket. This one is pretty friendly. It allows users to have sudden, legitimate bursts of activity right up to a specific capacity. Then it forces them to wait for the bucket to refill over time. On the flip side, we have the leaky bucket. This one is your strict disciplinarian. It enforces a constant, smooth drip, drip, drip of transactions, no matter how much volume gets dumped in at once. For most smart contracts, where your legitimate users might naturally submit a few transactions pretty quickly, the token bucket is usually the go-to choice. Section 3, per account versus global limits. Okay, so knowing how to throttle is great, but figuring out exactly who gets throttled is absolutely critical. You really need both of these scopes. Per account limiting is what stops a single greedy bot or just a really overly enthusiastic user from draining all your contract's resources. But that alone isn't enough. Global limiting steps in to protect the entire protocol from getting completely overwhelmed by a massive, sustained load from multiple users all at the exact same time. It's basically the difference between kicking out one rowdy patron and recognizing that the entire club has just hit maximum fire code capacity. Let's look at the 3 key dials you tweak on this engineering blueprint. First, capacity. This is the maximum burst size per account. We're using 10 for our tests here. Second is the refill rate, which is exactly what it sounds like. Tokens added per second, let's say 1 per second. And third is global capacity, which sets the total aggregate tokens available across everyone. We've set that to 100. The real trick here is perfectly balancing these 3 parameters. You want legitimate users to get their bursts, while the total system throughput stays safely under that global capacity. So if a user tries an 11th transaction right away, they politely get blocked. But if 101 users try a transaction at the exact same millisecond, that 101st user gets blocked too. All right, section 4, building the rate limiter. Now, instead of updating every single bucket on every single block, which, let's be real, would be an absolute gas nightmare, we use this really elegant refill on access mechanism. Step 1, calculate the elapsed time since the user's last action. Step 2, mathematically add tokens based on our refill rate, but strictly cap it so we don't exceed max capacity. Step 3, update the timestamp. And finally, step 4, check if they actually have enough tokens left to proceed. If they do, we decrement their balance. It's a beautifully lazy evaluation method that just works wonderfully. Of course, since we're building smart contracts, gas is king. To keep those gas costs incredibly low, we tightly pack our variables into a single storage slot. We use a uint128 for the tokens and a uint128 for the last refill timestamp. That alone is a massive gas saver. We also make sure to centralize the refill logic so we don't accidentally double count anything. And this is key. We design our limiter to return booleans instead of just reverting. Why? Because we want our tests and our circuit breakers to gracefully observe the failures without blowing up the entire transaction. Which brings us to section 5,
teaming up with breakers.
Testing this composition is where the real magic happens. We simulate a burst test to exceed the per-account capacity and a sustained load test to trigger the global limit. But that third point right there, that is the golden rule of composition. If your circuit breaker is already open, meaning the emergency stop is already pushed, your rate limiter must short-circuit and block traffic without mutating the bucket accounting. You absolutely do not want your rate limiter subtracting tokens when the breaker's already killing the transaction anyway. That's a one-way ticket to inconsistent accounting.
And this brilliantly illustrates our core philosophy here. Limiter rejections should be benign signals, not system-breaking exceptions. The limiter is just there to handle a noise. It's politely telling the user, hey, slow down, give it a second. And because it handles that noise so flawlessly, the circuit breaker only increments its failure counter for real, correlated operational failures, not just because someone mashed a button too fast. Honestly, they're the perfect team.
Finally, Section 6, Recap and Next Steps.
Let's wrap this up. Token and leaky buckets dictate exactly how traffic flows into your system, whether that's in bursts or a steady drip. Applying these algorithms to both per account and global scopes prevents local resource hogging as well as total global exhaustion. Crucially, your limiters protect your circuit breaker invariants, which keeps your emergency systems from falsely tripping just because the network got a little busy. And never forget, gas-conscious storage, like packing those UNT 128s, is exactly what makes all of this viable to run on-chain.
So what's next? Well, since rate limiting naturally lowers the immediate risk of fast exploit attempts by smoothing out your contract's request volume, you are perfectly primed for our next explainer. We're going to be diving deep into front-running mitigation techniques. But before we go, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Think about our patent drawing for a second. If an attacker maps out your exact refill rate, and they know the exact millisecond that token drops into the bucket, how could they use that perfectly predictable rhythm against you? And more importantly, how are you going to defend against it? Think on that. Thank you so much for joining this Forge College Explainer. I really hope you found this helpful. Make sure to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject and tons of other fantastic Web3 topics. See you next time.